This World Sleep Day is all about making sleep health priority, especially for teenagers. And joining us on the couch this morning is Dr. Dale Rae, Director of Sleep Science and Associate Professor at UCT, to unpack the science of sleep and why teens struggle with it and how we can all hopefully improve our rest at the end of the day. Doc, welcome.
Yeah, how are you doing, Doc?
I'm well, thank you.
Did you get a good sleep last night? Waking up early, hopefully you kind of feel the sentiments that we feel in the morning. It's like we want to get extra sleep, but we neglect it. And it's a crazy thing because all of us as human beings do that.
Yeah.
Why do we do that, though?
I guess it's part of this thing, how much can we push the boundaries, what can we get away with? We're in a mad society, there isn't enough time in the day.
Sure.
We've only got 24 hours at our disposal and we're trying to get so much done. So when we need to steal time to get things done, we're going to steal it from sleep for sure.
But why is it so important to sleep? I mean, if we can just start there as a foundation, why do we need to sleep as humans?
Yeah, the reality is that without sleep we die. That's the first thing.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. So if you were to completely sleep deprive yourself day after day after day, the ultimate result would be that you wouldn't live anymore. So it's as important as food and water for us. But most of us don't go around doing that. We just take off a couple of minutes or hours every single day. And it's got huge consequences in the short term for our sort of mood and emotional regulation, for our ability to think and multitask and be productive. And then in the longer term, it impacts our physical health. It's a little bit like, you know, we can smoke something today and not worry about the future. And this is exactly it. It starts to affect our brain in terms of brain health, and we can impact our risk for non-communicable diseases too.
This makes sense. Maybe you can fill in some more pictures for me, because I kind of look back on my sleep cycle, my sort of, let's call it circadian rhythm, or whatever you might refer to it. I remember being a teenager, I don't know about you, I would like be up early hours of the morning studying, wide awake and not have an issue with it, and then wake up pretty late, and then kind of things change and get impacted over time. I found like I can't stay up that late as I get older. Is there a reason behind this in terms of our growth spurts and where we are in our life and how it affects our sleep?
Yeah, that's a really great point. Teenagers are in a pretty unfortunate position, really, because on one end, they need to be up early for school. And don't worry if there's extramurals before school, sport or music practice or something. But the reality is that biologically, they actually cannot go to sleep very early. And so this is a true biological shift. This is not just them sitting there on social media and sort of faffing around and wasting time at the end of the day, but their circadian rhythms have changed. So that's their body's biological clock, as you quite rightly mentioned. And so an earlier bedtime for them is really tricky, but they also lose something called sleep pressure, which is at the end of the day, it's that sensation that you get when you've been awake for ages and you just feel that huge urge just to sleep. That's a massive sleep signal. And for them, that kicks in much later. So they actually are just not sleepy. And then, of course, they compound those two things with being on their phones, excessive light, and then that can have all sorts of other issues with their sleep. So they're in this really tricky position where they can't fall asleep early, but they've still got to be up early for school. And so they're chronically sleep deprived.
I can think of so many nights lying there, like there's an exam the next day, or I've got like a big comp, and I just can't sleep. I'm like, come on, everything's perfect, I'm zenned out, I'm just lying there like, come on. This makes sense. Yeah.
It is tough, but hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel, because when it comes to sleep hygiene and improvement, things we can do today or in the future for both teens, but maybe also us too, Doc, what can we do?
So I guess one of the things with teens is for them and their parents to understand that it's quite normal not to be able to fall asleep early for them, and to stop that fight. Rather look at the other end of the day, what can we do in the morning to buy that little bit of extra sleep time? So forcing a teen to get into bed early is only going to create stress and anxiety around why am I not falling asleep? And then also sort of resistance and conflict between the family members. So can you extend that sleep in the morning by any stretch? If it means being a little bit on your back foot and a little bit flustered in the morning, that's probably better off to get that extra half an hour sleep. The other thing that teens are allowed to do is nap. And so they get a nap license because they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. And that's really difficult to get in that small space of time. So coming home from school, not during school, coming home from school and having a quick afternoon nap, what do we need? Like an hour or so? That can be a pretty helpful strategy. And then just minimizing their light exposure at the end of the day, especially off their screens, and using filters for the blue light, etc., gives them every opportunity to bring their sleep as early as biologically possible.
How important is that actually? You mentioned this earlier, and right now, the screen time, the stimulation we get from our phones, how much of an impact is that actually having on us?
Yeah, it's got two massive impacts. The one is, again, biological, so our screens will emit quite bright light and often short wavelength light as well. That suppresses a hormone called melatonin, which our body needs to produce at the end of the day. It should be produced sort of sometime after sunset, and once melatonin is produced 2 hours later, we generally feel tired and ready for bed. So this is partially what's delaying this secretion of melatonin.
Sure.
But the other thing, of course, is that your phones are a link to a whole myriad of problems and exciting information. You socializing, you're connecting, and you're basically not disconnecting. And so there's this sort of stimulus, and where your brain is just, it's been receiving a whole lot of information, and you haven't had a chance to decompress and get ready to move into that runway into sleep. And so being able to put that phone aside and sort of just not be stimulated is really, really important.
Sure, that's so interesting, because sometimes in my mind I convince myself that by scrolling I'm putting myself to sleep. I'm like lulling myself into sleep, but it's the complete opposite is what you're saying, right? So Doc, when it comes to our rooms, our sanctuaries, what is sort of the ideal setup to allow for great sleep?
This is quite interesting, because the reality is that we could probably sleep just about, most of us could sleep anywhere, anytime, any place. You could literally probably hang most people by their feet and they'd be absolutely fine. So yes, it's nice to have a nice, cool, dark, comfortable place to sleep. The reality is that many South Africans do not have that luxury. And so I think just creating, at least controlling the things that one can control. If you've got a super noisy environment and you're very sensitive to noise, perhaps thinking about earplugs. It's not that easy to sleep with them, but it can be helpful. If you find that you're super sensitive to light and you can't get, block out curtains because you've got a street light outside, and maybe you need like an eye mask or something like that. So some little hacks like that are kind of useful. But at the same time, I wouldn't stress massively around that. It's much more important to make sure that your mind is in the right place to allow sleep to come.
Oh, this is vital and important information, because I feel like everybody in the country is not living at the optimal. I don't think anybody's capitalizing on sleep the way we should, and I think it has a bigger impact than we think. I want to hear from you, Mzansi, because we had a few hacks from the doc right now, but we asked you this morning, especially when it comes to sleep and celebrating World Sleep Day with us, what are the few non-negotiables to help you fall asleep? And we're hoping that you guys could come through with some of those answers right now. We got any voice notes or any comments? We got a comment from Tabang first up.
Hi Tabang, good morning to you too, saying reading a book before going to sleep.
Oh, interesting one.
Thumbs up, Doc?
Massive thumbs up.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, two reasons. Firstly, if it's not on a device, it's fantastic because we don't have that light reflecting back at our eyes, because often you've just got a little reading light with you. And it's a lovely way to help decompress and sort of stop absorbing so much sort of information that social media is driving at us.
Nice.
I get 3 words in and I'm out. That actually is, you're right, that is the way to go. Let's see what Geraldine has to say.
Good morning, Expresso fam. I think a few non-negotiables to good sleep is the lights must be off and there must be silence all around. Then I fall into bliss land. So again, I think the light in general, that's a very important one, right, Doc? Something that we should definitely pay attention to and get rid of it, guys.
Well, Lynn, let's see what you have to say about your non-negotiables. Good morning, Expresso team. My head hits the pillow and I'm immediately in dreamland. I have no worries. Have a lovely day. Lynn. Oh, Lynn, you are God's favorite, because my goodness, that's a life. That's a good life.
It is a good life. It's a good superpower, and I'm hopefully grateful that everybody else can hopefully capitalize on that. But this conversation is going to continue so that we can hopefully help you capitalize on good sleep and living your best life when you wake up in the morning. We've got a lot of reasons to also look forward to when it comes to this conversation. And sipping on some tea can possibly help.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm a tea girly, and there's a tea for everything that you need done. If you need to sleep, there's a tea for you. So we're going to get into a really beautiful spiced chamomile with honey, all the good things coming together to make sure that we're going to sleep well. The good docs in studio, we have to give a little something. So we'll prepare you just after this, Expresso fam. Don't go anywhere.